Hey everybody, welcome to Russo Works. I'm Russo and I do a little work here and there. You are watching Research What? And this is episode 2 of Watercolor Week. I got 5 do's and 5 don'ts. We're going to put them together. It's sort of like a top 10. Do number 1, do take your time. These are a few of my watercolor paints. You can see they're a little worse for wear, but that's totally fine. This is an example of a brush that I use. I don't know if you can read there 10-0. The point is it is a very, very small brush. This is so I can take my time, so I sort of force myself to take my time, which leads us into don't number 1, which is don't get in a hurry. Here, look at this white. I cut a hole in the side because this is totally dry. Hold on. Yep, nothing at all. But I could totally take this paint and add a little bit of water into it, grind it up a bit, I guess, and put it in a new tube, and it'd be fine. So we're gonna get this out of here and move on to our next do. Do work your way from small area to other small area. So you can see each of these ridges. I just go in and paint in the lines as I see fit. Now you are going to seal this between each layer so that you don't mess up your old work. It's not a huge time sink. Our next don't is don't try covering large areas uniformly. Here you can see on this Tau Crisis Battle Suit chest piece, the paint's a little blotchy. It doesn't look that good. You could use this to some great effect, but as a layer around other sealed layers. That being said, if you do make a mistake, you can always come in with a little bit of water, and the paint just reactivates just like that. You can dry the brush off a little bit and scrape it off, and once that's dry it'll be a lot less yellow. Of course, if you really mess up, you can always dip it in the sink. There, I rubbed it a little bit and you can see it comes right off. Moving on. Our next do use the water to your advantage. A lot of times you're going to want to touch recessed areas with a bit of pigment and not those areas around them. Well, it's easy enough to add water into the recesses and then just dot them with pigment, and the pigment will just sort of seep out to all the areas where the model is already wet. And that leads us to don't get things too wet for too long. I mean, we're not trying to do a hairspray technique here, though we could, totally could. We probably just wouldn't want to use watercolor paint. Do seal each successive layer. You can think of this like save states in emulators. You get to a point that you like, spray some matte finish on it. I have matte finish just because this is what I use for actual watercolors or charcoal drawings or things like that. You see, you put a lot of these little lines in here and then you spray it with some matte finish. And of course that means that our don't is don't miss it, because any of the places that you miss, when you get them wet again, that paint's just going to come right off. Next do have a plan. You can see here I've got a little crewman that I'm going to paint, hopefully with 100% watercolor, past this base coat. And if I didn't have a plan for this guy, well, I'd be in a lot of trouble. The last don't is don't go overboard. Here I've got a couple of Tyranid claws that I've shown you already. The one on the right has a lot more base coating, dark colors, you know, speed up the process. I can tie together these two colors and end up with something pretty nice. Tomorrow I'm going to have some basic techniques using those Tyranid claws that I showed you. Until then, this is Russo with Russo Works Research What? Signing out.